so that we could have the crucial conversations that Erie needs. And we're glad to have with us here in studio Kim Thomas, the Executive Director of Infinite Erie. Kim, always a pleasure to have you with us.
Thanks so much, Joel. It's great to be here, as always.
We're staying focused here today on the state budget, but we're going to, we'll go into nooks and crannies here. But first off, tell us a little bit about, kind of the origin story, the elevator pitch of Infinite Erie, if you would.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So Infinite Erie, just generally speaking, we're really working together with community and economic development practitioners throughout Erie County to really help convene and convey a shared agenda, shared priorities for growth, for economic growth throughout our county. And so really working together to say, okay, these are the if we want to see that trajectory turn in terms of population growth, or see area median incomes increase, see better participation in our workforce, some of these North Star goals that we really have as a community, what do we need to do in order to effectuate some of that transformation? So that's what we're doing. We're bringing together the leaders and the doers to say, okay, here are the best practices. Here's what it's going to cost to do this in our community. Let's see what we can do to bring forward the resources to bring those projects to fruition.
Can I go on a rabbit trail with you for a second?
Please, yes, I love rabbit trails.
All right, so I'm like this history buff, like weird history buff. I read the old newspapers that are on the library.
Okay.
And so I did a search literally yesterday, just for my own edification, on the 38th Street interchange. So believe it or not, there was supposed to be an interchange at West 38th Street. It was part of the big plan. I don't know. Now they have the Metropolitan Planning Organization
Yep.
that decides all the road projects and things.
Right.
This is in the 60s, early 70s, right? And they wanted to put, as I-79 came up, they were going to put a exit there. Well, it had opposition from the neighbors, even though the business people wanted it, because if you look at 38th Street, you have a business park there where Coca-Cola is and UPS, and they were going to be building that Hills Plaza, which is now, I don't even know, I guess it's a lot less than what it used to be. It used to be a heavily traveled area, and then you have Our Lady of Peace and so on. But it was interesting that one of the groups that really had a huge say was at the time called the Erie Conference.
How about it? That's exactly right.
And that's where I kind of picked up on what you've been tasked with, is that what are the big issues out there? How do we get, almost like you say, convening, get input from those that, may want to see some growth there, or maybe say, hey, well, let's put the brakes on.
Yeah, I mean, this ecosystem in and of itself is extremely complex. As you know, there are a lot of different organizations working in different roles and capacities within that ecosystem. But if each organization or entity is working toward its own separate siloed goals and priorities, we're never going to accomplish any of them.
Right.
So we felt it necessary. Let's ensure we bring everybody together. We're going to use the word intentional probably way too often throughout this hour-long conversation, but let's be intentional about it. Bring everybody to the table. Identify the areas in which we are all aligned on these strategies for growth, and push it forward together.
Are there any limits? I mean, because we have these private organizations, we have these nonprofit organizations, but then we have these public organizations. And so, the port, I'm sure, has a place at the table. So does Convention Center Authority. And so, I mean, because sometimes that's what you need to make something happen. If you really want to make your entertainment district go, you've got to have Erie events as part of the plan.
No doubt. I just came from that meeting this afternoon with the Port Authority and the Convention Center.
Is that
Authority.
right? Yeah.
Again, it's all working together and making sure everyone has an understanding of what the other is doing, what the other organization's vision for their future development activities, ensure that they're not stepping on one another or doing anything that's going to preclude the other from kind of moving forward in that fashion. If everybody knows and everybody's on the same page, and you can put together a timeline for success in doing all of that, you're going to be much more successful than you would if, the Port Authority's over here doing X and the Convention Authority's saying, oh, well, wait, we were going to do that over there.
Right.
Now we're competing. Well, let's do it together.
One more thing about the 38th Street interchange, which never happened, obviously, but when they would get the guy from PennDOT to come and talk about all the projects that supposedly were on the slate, this is back in 74, let's say, they were saying, oh, yeah, within the next 18 to 36 months. The Bayfront Parkway didn't start until the late 80s. Stuff takes a lot longer than what sometimes the bureaucrats in Harrisburg are going to tell you. So that leads me to Harrisburg. Again, it certainly took a lot longer to get a budget this year.
It did.
So, Ken, you sat in that ecosystem there as the governor's office, right? The governor's...
when I was in that space. Yes, I was the regional director for DCED, Department of Community and Economic Development.
Can you comment on why something like a budget, which happens every year, would take 4 months?
Politics. That's what it all boils down to, right? I think until, politics is always integrated into any of these conversations. And I think just the nature of the political environment statewide, nationally, et cetera, right now, I think it just lent itself to this lingering budget, which was in turn, obviously, providing significant angst and, impact on a lot of the people, locally and throughout the state.
If we were to talk to Josh Shapiro's people, the governors, they would say that they were looking that the Republicans were looking for a hit on Governor Shapiro because he's running for re-election next year. I can see that.
Sure.
But I also can see that there are little to no incentives for any kind of on-time decision making.
There are not. Even this year, you're hearing, we talk about the June 30th deadline, right? And now you're hearing that this is not a legally mandated, constitutionally mandated deadline. So what is it? So perhaps there does need to be something in place. There are no incentives except for doing the work of the people to get a budget done on time.
But there's the wake of the destruction of, marginal school districts having to take out loans, pay interest, to be able to pay their teachers. You have social service agencies dying on the vine because they're supposed to get multiple checks between July 1st and now. It just is no way to run a railroad.
No, and it's having the impact on the people locally. And until those people start to feel it, start to speak up, start to put pressure on our legislators, on the governor's office, et cetera, until that true breaking point is coming to a head, you're not necessarily going to see a lot of movement.
All right. So you have your ears to the ground here in Erie County in Northwest PA. Was there a lot of pain felt at the delay of the budget?
I think certainly from an educational school district standpoint, some of the health and human services and things of that nature, and then you're coupling everything that's happening at the state level with the federal shutdown and all of that.
We had a double whammy.
That. It's exactly right. And, I found it interesting to the fact that they were able to get both of them done on the same day. I thought that was pretty interesting. But certainly there was pain felt. I think, I'm looking often from a community and economic development standpoint. So we're looking at, business or resources that are supporting our businesses or resources that are going to help bring projects to fruition or, prevent them from at least stalling and keep moving forward. Mm-hmm. From that lens, I don't know that the statewide delay necessarily had too many negative implications. Fortunately, we were able to get something done. So now that money continues to flow. Those that were waiting on, some reimbursements for grant contracts, et cetera, or waiting to hear perhaps on approvals of certain grants, those things can start to happen again. But truly, I think where we're seeing the greatest impact there is at the federal level. So, but certainly it had a negative impact. Again, specifically for our school districts, our children, our families. The uncertainties, I think, is really just the angst that comes along with all of that. It just a lot of unpleasantness.
Does everybody get paid?
At the state level?
Did the troopers get paid? Did the unemployment office workers get paid and all that stuff?
As far as I know, I can't speak to certainty. Yeah. But so there are things that happen certainly from we've even had events where some of the agency representatives that we have here in the Northwest, they're on a travel ban or things of that nature where, they can't go serve the constituents that they serve on behalf of the Commonwealth because there's no state budget in place. I believe employees are still getting paid for the most part, or we're getting paid for the most part. Again, I can't speak to any certainty with that, but there are, it does prevent them from being able to do their jobs.
I mean, we actually had in the middle of the shutdown, we had a big announcement at the Bayfront about, what was that? A DCED,
yes.
our RCAP grant,
$10 million investment.
Yeah, for the Market House, and so it's hard for the average Joe to understand. What is the point of all this?
That's right. Yes, especially when it's hitting you at home. But I feel like until it hits you at home, you're not feeling it. You're not expressing the concern. But that's what has to happen. Those voices have to be loud.
Look at the federal when they started. 4% of all flights were being canceled, and SNAP, and
all the food insecurity.
That was crazy.
It is.
We're going to talk to Kim Thomas about the budget, as well as all of these things, how they all come together in impacting Erie and moving Erie forward. Stay with us. It's Talk Erie. Kim Thomas is with us here on Talk Erie and the Joel Natale Show. We are talking about the state budget, its impact here on Erie, and just kind of that whole idea of always moving forward here. And one of the one of the battles I face here on the radio show, and you get it because you're a media expert, is that it's hard to turn people's opinions about things or how they see things. People don't want to be gaslit, and certainly that's not what we're talking about here. But but when I see, for example, that Dave's Diner is reopened,
yes,
and at a beautiful building on the corner of Fifth and Peach, that's progress.
Absolutely, it is.
You got to recognize that. You can't just, oh no, that's just downtown, and what about us, or what or what have you. And it's like you're trying to push a flywheel, but after a while, you would think that the accumulation of Dave's and of Serafini's and what's going on at 10th and State and what's going on in Parade Street and what's going on West Bayfront and East Bayfront, it starts turning that flywheel.
It does. It all has to happen. It's such a long game. We talk about it all the time. It's so comprehensive in nature, but it is all about that momentum. And one great success leads to the next great success. I mean, you think back to the conversations when the EDC was created and they were acquiring these properties, and we're losing Dave's Diner. Well, look.
You're right.
Now we're getting it back. And in a brand new building.
Double the size.
Yes, exactly. On it used to be, a flat gravel lot, to the west of McDonald's.
It was parking.
Yeah, exactly. So that's progress. And, when we talk, as we're talking about the state budget and the impacts that has, the momentum, there's something to be said for momentum. And as long, you have to keep it going. Things like a state budget delay, impasse, or a federal government shutdown, those are roadblocks to that momentum. It's stalling that momentum at every step of the way. So, but yeah, it is progress. Absolutely, it is.
When we talk about speaking in one voice too, and I think we're doing a better job of that with Harrisburg. Did you see anything in this budget that says, hey, Erie is getting its fair share of this or that? Any sense of that?
I don't think necessarily Erie specifically getting anything in particular that shows that that's happening. But I think the fact that we're able to have conversations with the state agencies, with the cabinet leaders, with the governor's office to express what our needs are and show how they align with other communities' needs, and then seeing that reflected in a $140 million economic development, budget that's going to help in this regard throughout all of these communities in the Commonwealth. It's seen in that nature. It's seen when the governor comes down to the Bayfront and says that the Commonwealth is investing $9 million to ensure that the Market House project comes to fruition. We're seeing that the state, the governor, his cabinet leaders, et cetera, they are recognizing the momentum that Erie does have, and they're working alongside us to say, okay, Erie, what are your shared priorities? And, you mentioned the fact, we are having the conversations with our elected officials, with our legislators. We've expanded Infinite Erie's board for that specific reason, to bring those other community and economic development leaders to the table. So we're enabling ourselves to craft that shared agenda together. We're being very intentional about who is sitting around that table to say, okay, we have the chamber, we have the community foundation, we have Erie Insurance, we have the Erie County Redevelopment Authority, and others, including the funders. Like I said, Community Foundation, ECRA. We're all sitting around the table crafting this shared agenda based on all of the various types of work that we're doing, and we're able to collectively go to Harrisburg with that, go to our elected officials. These are the top priorities, and they recognize that, and we're seeing that they recognize that.
I want to ask you, because the biggest chunk of money that goes out from the state every year is basic education,
Yes.
K-12. Looks like it got another boost.
It did.
And one of the things that helps at least the city district and some of the poorer districts is the fair funding formula continues to be engaged for any new money, is my understanding.
That's my understanding as well. So yes, we're very fortunate that education remains a priority of the governors and of both chambers, or all the chambers,
right.
And that we're seeing this, again, record-breaking investments in basic education, and that's critical. We have to keep seeing that. Erie specifically, we've seen the the trials and tribulations that we've faced through the Erie School District or some of our other school districts just by not having that fair funding, right? We're not seeing the basic education funding that we need to based on the population and the needs of this specific district. So they're continuing to have those conversations, continuing to try and right size those budgets, right size those allocations of resources to ensure that our community, our school district has what it needs in order to provide the best education it can to the children going through that system. And the Commonwealth, the legislators, et cetera, are continuing to have the conversations around. We talked this year a lot about charter school reform,
right.
And we saw there's going to be some savings there. So again, some controversial topics, but conversations, like you say, the crucial conversations, they have to be had,
sure.
and there has to be some movement in order to ensure that the school district, specifically, in our opinion, the Erie School District, is getting its fair share of resources.
When you look at the body of work that the Infinite Erie is doing, how where are their touches with workforce? Because that seems to be kind of where the conversation is right now. Is you don't necessarily need a college degree, although I think college degrees work for a lot of people, but we need to have the workforce. We need to have the population. When you look at some of the priorities at Infinite Erie, where does workforce come into play?
It is one of the top priorities.
It is.
So when we are going to be looking into 2026, we have a number, like 3 areas of priorities, and one of those is supporting economic development. But even more specific than that, it is around workforce development, talent attraction, and also specifically investment in site readiness. So it is. So workforce development is a top priority for Infinite Erie and its organizational partners. I think we still have a lot to do in that realm. From where I sit, I don't see a workforce development strategy for Erie County, right? And we have a grand opportunity with all of the institutions of higher education, with the community college, with apprenticeship programs and our unions, and the Erie Center for Arts and Technology and the programs that are coming out there. I see it as a grand opportunity when we talk about convening to bring all of those institutions together, really do a deeper dive into what we did several years ago with the Targeted Industries report that the chamber
the Garner
did.
report,
It's exactly right.
Yeah.
And say, okay, what are the true needs of our workforce now? What do the employers need? What is the skill set, the talent that they're struggling to identify locally? Because ensuring that workforce, those skill sets are here in our community is going to be a make or break in whether or not existing companies are able to expand here or new businesses are able to locate here.
Do you take on that lift? Does the chamber take on the lift? Or
We
it's like
together.
everybody
we do it
right?
together, right? But we do it together collaboratively, not on our own paths, right? It's not,
Right.
The chamber going in this direction to work on workforce development. It is something that they should and will be leading, right? But as a partner. So we, Infinite Erie is the one that's convening all of, these partners, working to identify some best practices that we might see in workforce development or talent attraction throughout the nation, and saying, how can we implement that here?
Got Ken Thomas with us here from Infinite Erie. More after the news at the bottom of the hour. It's Talk Erie. It's Talk Erie and the Joel Natale Show. The heat is on, and I guess the legislators felt that the heat was on, and so we passed the budget last week. And here to talk about the budget and just how it intertwines with the goals and the future of Erie is Kim Thomas. She's the executive director of Infinite Erie. Kind of, what do you like? If in a sentence, what's your subtitle?
Subtitle. Convener,
yes. But conducting the inclusive playbook. Mm-hmm. What is it, up to 35 projects?
It is. We are actually going to be putting out a 2026 playbook specifically for next year, outlining the shared agenda and priorities that we've been discussing with our community and economic development partners. But it is, as it was rolled out, 3.5 years ago, 35, transformational investment initiatives that, originally, if all of those projects were to come to fruition, would really accelerate Erie's next renaissance.
Well over $1 billion of investment.
It is correct. Yeah, it's tremendous impact. That's exactly right. But again, each one of those, they're all in various stages, right? Some are still working through, problem solving and project development and some of those pre-development activities. So they all take a significant amount of time. So we've recognized that the name of the game is focus. So let's really focus on what the here and the now, the priorities, some of the hard to do things that we need to really tackle right here, right now to start seeing some of that growth happening to ensure that the momentum continues.
I'd be remiss to not ask you about how the political change will impact some of your priorities. Again, we're going to see an administration change at City Hall, administration change at the courthouse, and even some different players in city council and in county council. Not so much change there, but does that impact some of the priorities?
It doesn't. It does impact the priorities because we want to make sure that we're aligned, right? We want to ensure that as these new elected officials are coming into office, that we recognize what their priorities are and do they align with some of the conversations we've already been having, and how do we integrate all of that together? Again, you can't have City Hall or the courthouse, saying X is a priority when, maybe the rest of the ecosystem is saying Y is a priority. So again, making sure we're all working together, but we're really excited for the upcoming change of leadership. I will say, Mayor Schember and his team at City Hall have been, at the table alongside Infinite Erie since prior to launching,
right.
As the playbook was being crafted.
The mayor has a standing committee slot right there.
Correct. So yes, we worked alongside of them. I worked alongside the city's redevelopment authority, obviously, and really trying to make sure that, again, that there was alignment there. But we've also been working alongside Mayor-elect Devlin in a number of ways over the past 3 years in this work. She's obviously been instrumental in helping us lead some of the neighborhood revitalization work, some of the housing work that we're really diving into pretty deeply these days. So we're really excited to see the energy that she's going to be bringing to that office, and excited to, again, help work to ensure that that her agenda is integrated in with the greater picture, because that's what truly matters. And certainly with the county executive's office, I've had an opportunity to get to know County Executive-elect Vogel, and we're excited to work with her and her team. There's interest there in participating with the work of Infinite Erie, being a part of that shared agenda, having a seat at the table, and again, working with.
It's a good segue to come from the county, where there's a lot of the day-to-day of human services happens through the county, right? And it seems like in this budget, the governor and the legislators try to get to some more funding for things like personal care and so on. I'm not sure how, the fine points on whatever came out in the budget. I know there was a lot of lobbying because some of these, like personal care assistants, they hadn't received any kind of raise and reimbursements for forever. When you look at that kind of human capacity or community building that way, is that kind of in the playbook as far as, like, helping out human services and things like that? Are there entities that do stuff like that?
So I think the greatest connection between Infinite Erie, the playbook, and some of those human services, social services is our work around Housing First Erie and to house the unhoused. Infinite Erie has been working very close with Department of Human Services at the county to identify some of the needs and try to identify some of those opportunities around housing the unhoused population. So that's where the greatest touch point is, I think, in the work that we do. But certainly recognizing that the only reason we do any of this work is for the people, right? Is for, the residents of our community, the families, the visitors, everyone. So that health and human services component of the county is so critical that those resources are there and are being, whether they're coming, from the federal government and being passed through the state government, or if they're coming from the state government down here to the local level. But they're critical in ensuring that this population is served in the way it should be.
I mean, we're always going to have that these services needed and engaged, and it's millions and millions of dollars a year from county government. Most of it as a pass through, but it's interesting because social service agencies can make decisions that impact kind of that greater conversation. Where should a drop-in house be located?
That's
for
right.
example,
Absolutely.
Can we afford wraparound services and permanent housing? What about? We had another conversation with the city mission. They're focusing on a facility for women and families because that's kind of there's a high need there. In addition to what like Jeannie Haggerty's doing at Mercy Center.
There's a need for all of it. I mean, the need is so great that you need everyone at every different level, whether it be, permanent supportive housing, transitional housing, the drop-in centers, whatever that is. There's such a great need for all of it. But that's why it's so important to have that partnership with the county or with all of these organizations to ensure that all of those areas are being touched and that, certainly not duplicating, but identifying the area of greatest need and moving those forward.
I think the governor also mentioned, I think he certainly did in his speech, because he named all the sports teams, at least from Pittsburgh and Philly, about tourism.
Yes.
About
and everything that's coming next year.
Oh, my gosh, yes. America 250 and all that. Where does tourism fit in Infinite Erie? Are you working on some assets there?
Yeah, so tourism is economic development,
right?
Right?
Yeah,
it absolutely is. It's I give such kudos to John Oliver and Visit Erie's team. I think the new branding is great, and it just goes to show you that it's about getting people here for the weekend or the week, but it's about so much more than that. It's about providing them the opportunity to see all that Erie has to offer, and perhaps they think, maybe I don't want to just visit here. Maybe I want to bring my family and live here because it is a good life and a great lake. So really broadening that brand to recognize that it's not just a place to visit, but a place where you can have a really good life. So anyway, so absolutely, tourism is economic development. And so we'll be working very closely with Mayor-elect Devlin and others, some of the stakeholders. I mentioned the Convention Center Authority and the Port Authority and others to really focus on the asset that is our bayfront.
Those projects are in the playbook?
They are. So yes.
Okay.
So when the original playbook was rolled out in June of 2022, one of the...
It's been a while.
It has been a while. I can't believe it. One of the specific call-outs is create a world-class waterfront task force. So it's really... And the idea behind that was you have this asset and you still have development opportunities. Explore what's out there and what Erie's Bayfront can truly be. Understand, go visit places and see, hey, we can have this. We can have a world-class waterfront. So all of that to say, tourism is economic development, but also ensuring that the amenities and opportunities are here for the residents who live here as well.
Yeah. Another element of the budget that the governor pointed out was economic development and specifically manufacturing and site selection. We talk a lot about the McCain Business Park, 200 acres, trying to get that up and running with all the essentials. Like you got to get water there.
Yeah.
We need the water. And I sound like Trump. We need the water.
Well, we do.
And but Pennsylvania sites is kind of a big deal,
It's
right?
huge. It's a massive deal.
And so when you talk about dealing with manufacturing, I mean, tell me about how those conversations go, because that really harkens back to our past, but still very important part of our present.
Absolutely.
We're still making world-class locomotives at Wabtec every day.
No doubt. I wish my colleague, as sometimes on Friday mornings,
yes.
Miss Tina Mangine, were sitting next to me right now to help pinch hit on this one.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, it's absolutely still part of the conversation. I mean, we talk about, the targeted industries, and we are still very much a manufacturing community, but, the percentages, it's starting to kind of waver a little bit here and there in terms of where that stands on our overall employment opportunities. But it's about right sizing the manufacturing industry, or recognizing what the more modern industries are around manufacturing. But Erie is primed for all of that, and that's why McCain Business Park is so important. It's why Ironworks Square is so important, and all of these ensuring that we have these sites ready for when manufacturers who already exist here today are looking to expand, so they don't hightail it to North Carolina or somewhere else, that they have the opportunity and the resources to be able to grow and stay here.
Is it your job at Infinite Erie to look at the kind of the underdeveloped or undeveloped land and say what could be? Like, I'm thinking about, people ask me questions. Well, what's going on 12th and Green Garden? Well, we thought that Finnish Thompson bought it, right? But I don't know. I don't have an update on that. We're hoping that we're going to get the what is it, the winery or distillery out in Harbor Creek.
Yes, yeah.
The French Canadian guy. Yes. I mean, we hear these stories and we hear these announcements and so on. Obviously, the plastic recycling thing, the PRG didn't work out, or IRG, excuse me, because of. Because the federal government doesn't seem to want to do big projects like that these days.
Yeah.
And then you've got the data centers. You got this whole other layer of like, hey, we might need to get more power online, and the energy stuff.
It's a lot. So I really see it is. It's a lot to try and cover, but that's why we're so fortunate that we do have all of these organizational partners who each have their roles and areas of expertise to really fit into the bigger picture. So I think Infinite Erie, we really are providing a supporting role in all of this. Right. So it's saying, okay, it's helping to elevate site readiness and investment in site readiness as a priority, so that investors and funders in the Commonwealth and others recognize this is a priority for Erie. We need to advocate for resources like a PA sites or others to ensure that we can actually get this work done.
Would we want to do all of we don't need to be in every project, do we?
We do not.
We may not want to be a data center kind of place.
Well, I think that's absolutely open for conversation, because there are there are pros and cons to data centers, right? I mean,
they don't make a lot of jobs.
That's exactly right. But there are a lot of resources associated with data centers. So if that's an opportunity that they're willing to pay for the infrastructure, and hey, maybe if they might be willing to, provide some additional community benefits on top of their investment, at a McCain Business Park or wherever. Those are the conversations that have to happen to be able to kind of balance out those pros and cons, right? To ensure that the community is benefiting from whatever businesses go into those.
Again, you could think like, hey, it would be great to have a data center at the former hammer mill plant, and they could just suck water out of the bay or whatever out of the lake. But you may not want your lake warmed like that.
That's right. That's right. There are a lot of different implications.
There's the implications, exactly.
Yeah. So it's Infinite Erie's role to ensure that, again, all of the partners are coming together, having those conversations. If there need to be, additional studies or, data requested, or really to understand the full impact of some of these things, that's what we're there to do, to provide that capacity to kind of help those that are in the decision-making seats.
Kim Thomas is with us here from Infinite Erie. Was there anything about what you heard from the budget or from what the governor said that, like, okay, that's super cool, I'm excited about that?
So I think, there's a lot to be really excited about in the budget. There's still some missing pieces, I think, kind of from where I sit, that didn't necessarily make it through, but we're hopeful in future budgets. We continue to see the corporate net income tax decrease.
Yes.
What it was 9.9% when Shapiro took office, and I think now it's 7.7 something percent. So we're continuing to see that. That's massive in terms of a competitiveness standpoint for the Commonwealth. We're seeing investment in childcare, which, we talk about tourism as economic development. Early childcare is economic development. If parents want to be able to go to work during the day or whenever that might be, they have to have affordable availability to be able to place their child in a place where they're not only safe and thriving, but they're learning and, having that early access to education. So the fact that this year's budget invests, I believe, $25 million toward, I think, worker retention and
something
incentives.
Like 10,000 a piece.
I forget exactly.
Some kind of a grant per.
It is. It's to incentivize
worker
the
or
workers.
something. Yeah.
It's really difficult to find childcare workers.
Yeah.
So it's, the conversation we have in Erie specifically is about the availability or lack thereof of childcare spots. So to be able to incentivize those workers, we saw the resources that the Erie County Redevelopment Authority was able to allocate in terms of incentivizing some of those childcare educators to ensure that they stay in those jobs. That was huge, and so now we need to make sure that we have the right size in terms of the number of slots specifically for the families that need them. So that was really big. I mean, just seeing $140 million in community and economic development is great. We'd love to see some additional resources in the future for some affordable housing or housing efforts in general. What the budget did last year in terms of increasing the cap on PHFA's fair funding, that was a great first step. But having some additional resources specifically through DCED would be great. The Main Street Matters program, $20 million again this year. That first became $20 million last year, which was a huge step because prior to, I believe, last year's budget, we'd spent the last 15 or so years at $6 million a year available for the entire Commonwealth for supporting our downtown business.
The downtown
districts.
business.
Exactly. So,
getting out of Reggie, does that concern you?
I don't know enough to speak to that.
I think he was trying to get it off of the Republicans' talking points. Let's just face it.
Compromise, right? It came
to
the point. We recognizing that wasn't going to get a budget to move without.
No, and Pennsylvanians are a special breed. We don't want to be pushed around by our neighbors, and I think there was a little bit of that. Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited for you developing that kind of like narrowly focused 2026 playbook.
We're really looking forward
cool.
to it. We think it's the best way to move forward. So there are a lot of initiatives and organizations, whether it be some of our neighborhood community development organizations, East Side Renaissance. We still certainly focus on the Bayfront. We're working right now alongside Impact Corey and the Catch Project with the Corey Higher Ed and trying to find some finish line funding for that project. But we recognize that focus is the name of the game in order to keep the momentum going. So we're looking forward to early next year rolling out that 2026 playbook.
Singing out of the same hymn book.
How about it?
That's what gets things happening.
It absolutely is true.
Kim Thomas, Infinite Erie, appreciate it.
Thanks so much for having me.
It is 4:53.